Chapter 21. We pull up to the shelter, a low building painted bright orange. A flash of Chico's face glowing by the fire the night we burned my clothes flickers in my mind. There are people sitting outside the shelter. A woman in bright pink shirt, near the doorway, staring out at the street and standing on one foot, who immediately reminds me of a flamingo. A man in a blue and white striped shirt, sitting on an overturned paint bucket. His eyes take us in as we get out of the taxi, but then his gaze goes back on the street when we walk up to the entrance. A priest in a long white robe spots us as we peer inside, nervous and unsure of where we go, what to do. He gestures for us to come in. Bienvenidos, hijos, the priest says. Bienvenidos a Belén. The thing in my chest, my heart, stirs at the way he welcomes us, at how he calls us hijos. I stare at the blue walls and make me feel peace. I exhale a breath I think I've been holding since we've left. Relief washes over me. I did it. I got us here. I blink away the tears in my eyes and tell myself not to get emotional. I look at Chico, who smiles his stupid smile and says, "We made it." I shake my head at him, but I can't help smiling back, as my heart flutters in my chest, like it's grown wings. We didn't make it yet, not yet. We have to go so far, but we made it here, and that seems like something. The shelter smells like home, like coffee and warm tortillas, and sugar and green chilies, and chives, and onions, and simmering beans. It smells like someone cares. "I'm going to use the bathroom," Pequeña whispers to me, looking around. I nod and watch as she asks someone and then disappears. One of the women smiles, a flash of silver glinting from between two of her teeth. I watch as a boy younger than me, younger than Chico, holds his plate out to her. "Sabes qué?" she asks him, speaking to him gently. "When I make this food, I sing, and I pray to Papa Dios, so it will nourish your soul as well as your body." He smiles, and she spoons eggs and beans onto his plate. She places two tortillas on top and hands him a wrapped chocolate cupcake. My heart fills with a kind emotion I've warned myself not to feel. It's dangerous to feel too much, whether it is hope or despair. I wish I could reach into my chest, wrap my hand around that pulsating thing, and calm it. "Sit down," the priest says, gesturing to the long table in the center of the room. "I'll be with you in just a moment." He goes back to talking to a man who has the look of a beaten dog to him. We sit down near the boy, who is by himself eating his food, and I stare at the man, at others who walk past us with the same expression. They don't look like people who have dreams. They look like people too tired, too scared to dream. I wonder how long before I look like that too. Maybe I already do. In a far corner, there is a small television, but it's off. My eyes scan the wall, where maps outlining different routes to the border hang alongside children's drawing stick figures of families. Some of the figures have happy faces, and others sad ones. Some of them have rainbows, and some of them show stick figures falling on the ground, their eyes tiny black X's. A calendar marks the days. "Hola," a voice is suddenly next to us. My name is Padre Gilberto. When I open my eyes, the priest is there. A woman with glasses stands next to him, with a clipboard in her hand, her gray hair pulled back in a frizzy ponytail. "This is Marlena, the co-director who works at this shelter," the priest says, gesturing to the woman. "Where are you coming from?" Chico looks at me, and I answer, "Guatemala," I say quietly. The priest nods. "You're heading to the United States?" I nod. "Well, Marlena will take you to answer some questions and get you settled in. Don't worry, hijos, you are safe for now." He reaches for my hand and holds it for a moment, before letting go and doing the same to Chico. I hope God's grace will transfer to me in that touch. Keep me safe for more than just now. "Come with me," Marlena says. "Wait, there's one more," I tell her, looking around for Pequeño, who just then is heading back to us. Marlena looks at Pequeña and nods, who leads us to the room with a small desk and two chairs. Everywhere there are boxes, some stuffed with papers, others with random things like cereal and blankets and socks. She closes the door behind us, even though the room is stuffy and hot. She asks us for our full names. When it's Pequeña's turn to answer, she hesitates before giving her real name. Marlena looks over her glasses and nods. When she realizes Pequeña is not a boy, "Don't worry," she says. "I understand." Marlena asks again, "Where are you from?" "Where were you from?" And exactly where we're leaving. Chico and I tell her about Ray, and she listens intently, quietly. "So it was you two who witnessed the murder?" "Not exactly, but yes." "And then he pressured you to work for him, to be part of his gang." Chico and I nod, and she turns to Pequeña. "You too?" Pequeña hesitates. Why are you asking us this? You're not going to stop us from going on, right?" No, it's a dangerous trip. It's almost an impossible trip. I won't stop you, because I know you're running from worse. But I do have to make sure this shelter is as safe as possible. That crooks and criminals aren't coming here pretending to be migrants who then turn around and prey on real migrants. Some people do that, you know. They'll say, "Oh, come with me. I know of someone who can help you." Or, "I know a way you can make some money." And then Marina shakes her head. "Who knows with who or where you'll end up?" "Bueno, I know it sounds heartless, but I have to make sure you're really in need." Pequeña's eyes fill with tears, and she wipes them away roughly before they can even flow down her cheeks. "Our stories are real," she says, glaring at Marlena. Pequeña's face turns dark red as she tries to hold back tears, hold back her anger. "I'm sorry," Marlena says, looking at Pequeña carefully. "I didn't mean. I'm running from the same guy, too," she spits out. "Do you need to tell you more than that?" If Pequeña's words were visible, they'd be black, tinged with red and orange like burning coals. When Pequeña looks at Marlena, something passes between them, that Marlena shake her head. "No, that's enough," she says, before going on to the next question. "It hits me then so suddenly. It feels like I've been struck." The truth is silver and white and flashes, like lightning. It comes from somewhere above, cracks into your brain, shoots down on your heart, zaps you. Ray. Pequeña is running from Ray. Because that baby she didn't want, that she couldn't look at and could hardly stand to hold, that baby is Ray's. I look at her, but she won't meet my eyes. She is looking at her feet, wiping the tears I can't see, but I know are there. "Pequeña," I whisper, but she shakes her head. Marlena directs more questions at me, and I answer. She explains the rules of staying at the shelter. The stay here is limited to no more than 3 days. Backpack searches are mandatory to ensure we are not carrying any weapons. I glance at Pequeña, who puts her hand in her pocket. Men and women sleep in her separate quarters unless there are no bunk beds left, and then it's left in the common room. 2 meals are served a day, breakfast and dinner, and only at specific times. We're allowed one shower during our stay, and we must stand in line and wait our turn. Showers must be done one at a time, except for mothers helping their children. No belligerent behavior, no threatening or harassing other migrants, no alcohol, no drugs. Breaking any of these rules will get you kicked out and back on the streets. When Marlena is done, she looks at us, asks if we understand. "Yes," we say in unison. "Good," she says, as she searches each of our backpacks. Then she walks us at the dining area. When she adds them to the shelf piled high with other backpacks, and past a volunteer who looks over them and makes sure that nobody takes anyone else's bag. And then finally she tells us that even though breakfast is over, we can still get some food if there's any left. The woman who scraped the last of the breakfast food onto our plates looked at us warmly. "Speak to us, look us in the eyes, tell us to eat." Chico sneaks glances at Pequeña as we sit down at the table. Now empty, except for us. We don't ask Pequeña anything more about Ray. We eat our food in minutes. Around us people play cards or talk quietly. Every now and then there is laughter, and the sound of it is odd and out of place. The television is on now and plays loudly in the corner. A gossip show Mama used to watch, even though she said it was garbage, flashes on that screen. Television people in bright, crisp, expensive clothes. A woman sits inches from the television, staring at the faces of the made-up woman, listening intently of the stories of celebrities. We watch from the table, one show to another, We go outside and watch a few guys kicking a soccer ball. We watch people wash clothes by the cement sink outside. The hours pass. Marlena finds us before she leaves for the night and tells us we can shower tomorrow, that there are no more beds available, but there is another large room around back where we can sleep on the floor. We have no mats, and the floors are concrete, but here are some blankets, she says. She hands them to us and shows us where the room is. They turn the lights off in an hour, she says. I think about asking Amelina for my backpack, for the Walkman I carry here. The tapes Mama gave me a few years ago, things that belonged to my father and his sister had sent us. But I remember that promise I made to myself, that I would only listen once I got on the train. Gracias, I tell Marina, who is all business and efficiency, who gives a small smile and nods. But her eyes flicker with compassion. No venimos mañanas, she says, buenos noches. And then she is gone, and there is only us and the woman in the corner playing some kind of game with a teen girl and a toddler girl. Another two women near her, an old man with a girl about Chico's age and us. Chico, Pequeña, and I settle down in the far corner of the room, opposite a wall, with a huge mural of La Virgin. We watch as one of the women gets on her knees, inches over to La Virgin, bit by bit, her knees scraping against the concrete floor. I've heard of people traveling miles this way over dirt road and puddles and gravel on their knees to appeal to the altar of the saint or holy figure. It was a way of showing sacrifice, suffering, and respect, a way of making one worthy of their prayers being answered, as if her actions are cue, one by one. The other migrants do the same, even the old man who topples over and has to steady himself with his hands every few inches, but does not give up until he is right in front of the mural. Chico looks at us, and is the first of us three to follow, then Pequeña, then me. My jeans protect my skin, but the boniness of my knees makes them ache. I look over at Chico and Pequeña, at how they close their eyes. Chico's face is scrunched up, and I can almost hear the pleading I imagine repeating it in his head. Please, please keep us safe. Pequeña's face is stoic, almost expressionless, but her lips move ever so slightly. I try to pray, but all I can do is wonder why we have to hurt to be worthy of God's grace. And then I worry it's blasphemy. And then I worry I'll be damned. So I concentrate on the mural, how the colors seem to glow, even in this space, partly. Light, but by a weak night light, plugged into the room's only outlet, red like blood, turquoise like the water, in Rio Dulce, blue like the sky. I looked at on the back of Mama's motor scooter, green like the walls of Don Felicio's store, yellow like the flower outside the warehouse. I think of Mama. I don't want to think of her until now. I've pushed her out of mind each time she's come in, but there is no more landscape to watch, and there is no sound of wind, or tires, or hissing of the bus, no television or people to distract me. There's only Mama. My eyes fill with tears that flow no matter how much I don't want them to. I don't want to think of her, back at the home, staring at the ceiling, thinking of me, wondering how I could leave her, how I could lie and tell her everything was okay, how I could hide so much from her. I don't want her wondering what kind of trouble I was in, and how she could have protected me. I don't want her to wondering if I'm okay, or where I'm sleeping tonight. I hear crackling sounds, and I wonder if it's my heart breaking. Maybe it's not made of muscle and chambers, ventricles and arteries. Maybe it's made of glass. Maybe those sharp pains in my chest are shards slicing me from the inside out. And maybe it can never be put back together again. I look at La Virgin. I squeeze my eyes shut. Even if I'm not sure God will hear me, I pray. I pray like Chico. Please, please, keep us safe. The next morning, we sit outside for breakfast. The shelter is off a side street. That's off a side street from the main road, so I can hear the muffled sound of traffic, of horns blaring and vendors selling, just through the surrounding trees, and just under the louder noise of the shelter, of pots and pans in the kitchen, of people waking and conversing, of water running and the television blaring with morning cartoons and small kids giggling. A couple of guys approach us, sit nearby. Where are you guys headed? One of them asks. My heart races at that question, I remember Marlena's comments from yesterday about people at shelters who pretended to be migrants. But Chico, with his mouth full of eggs and beans, quickly answers. Arica, he says, just as I say al norte. I realize I forgot to tell him to stop answering questions when strangers ask. Ariga, one of the guys says, to catch Bastia, right? Us too. Are you leaving today? We can travel together. I made the trip before I know the way. Oh wow, Chico explains. That would be his voice stops, and I can see that Pequeña has turned on him and blocked him from the guy's view. Really, the guy goes on. Last time I got caught crossing El Rio Bravo. But I mean, that was probably a good thing because honestly I almost drowned. He shakes his head and looks at me. He looks honest enough, but I can't tell if he's being truthful. Can't tell if he was convincing enough for Malena that is really someone trying to lure us out of here. Lead us to who knows where. Maybe he's another wolf, just like Ray. I can't take the chance. Nah man, we just got here, I tell them. We'll be here for a couple of days. Kenya is talking to Chico in a low voice and when she moves out of the way again, I see he avoids looking at me. We'll probably stick around that long too, the guy says. Maybe we'll see each other on the other side one day. But I don't respond and he gives me a funny look. I nod and turn, stare at my plate, and he won't keep talking to us. The thing is, he could be perfectly harmless. I might have messed up bad, because maybe he could have helped us out. But there's no way for sure. I try to imagine how the three of us look to others. Targets. I keep eating, but the beans get stuck in my throat. It's hard to swallow, pass through fear. That we're running to guys like Ray, here already. The three of us stay quiet, and eventually the guys finish their food and walk away. I turn to Chico. Don't tell anyone else what our plans are. Now we have to keep our eyes on those guys and make sure they aren't keeping their eyes on us. Sorry, he says, staring down at his feet. I shake my head, feeling bad because I made him feel bad. On top of the worry of the trip. It's okay, Chico, Pequeña says gently, but Pulga's right. We can only trust each other. It's fine, I mutter to Chico. Just, Boba, be careful, okay? He nods. Pequeño looks at me. When do you want to leave? Tonight. We'll catch one of those white minivans from here all the way to Arica. The trip is only a few hours, but it only takes us a lot longer than that because there are checkpoints. We'll have to get off before checkpoints and walk through the fields and make our way back on the highway, past the checkpoint and catch another minivan. Chico looks worried. At night, I shrug. From what I've heard, the checkpoints are less active at night, and there are less of them, so we'll cover more distance faster, Pequeña nods. If we leave at 7 tonight, we'll have 12 hours of darkness to make the trip. After sunrise, there are more officials out. I continue. I look down at the food on my plate. My stomach is in knots, but I also know I need energy to make the trip. I think of what lies ahead of us. I think of the woman who made us this food. And even though it falls like a heavy brick in my stomach, I eat it all. Chico and Pequeña do the same. Father Gilberto suddenly comes out and begins talking to those of us who gathered there. Arlena is handing out leaflets with information about the migrant shelters along the way. Numbers migrants can call for help, organizations that aid migrants, and in the same breath, am I just to always be on guard and not to be trusting. Warnings about the dangers along the way, and then a whole section on the dangers of riding La Bestia. We listen intently, and sombering quietly comes over, and when the father pleads for us to be vigilant and careful, I glance at Chico. He looks like he's going to throw up. I glance at Pequeña. Her face is almost expressionless, but there's a kind of stoic anger building in her eyes. Padre Gilberto tells us that we are standing next to those who will die along the way. People turn ever so slightly, looking at one another, and those of us who are lucky enough to survive will carry injuries and trauma, and that will last a lifetime. He lets that sink in for a long time, before reminding us to trust in God. Nothing is impossible for God. I think of all the people who have passed through here, just like us, only to die in hours or days later. The brick in my stomach grows heavier. Father Gilberto prays over us. and then the crowd disappears, quite at the father's words of sombering reality. We understand danger, we grow up with danger, but this danger feels different. This danger feels more crushing, but maybe because it's so close to where hope lives. Father Gilberto is right, but the problem is if we think about all that we can grow, we won't go on. And if we don't think about it, we'll probably die. I try to push it out of my mind for now. We'll shower before we leave, I tell Chico and Pequeña. It'll probably be a while before we get another chance, and the fresher we look, the less attention we draw. When we go to Marlena to get our backpacks, she hands them over and shows us to the long line of others waiting. There is only one shower, so it will be a while. There's no hot water, and you have 5 minutes, but it's something. I nod. Thank you. We sit on the floor as we wait, moving up every few minutes, as someone goes into the shower and then emerges back out into the hallway. If someone is taking too long, the next person bangs on the door. We move up and up and up. We are near the kitchen, where I can see another line of people. That line is for those who can afford to buy a calling card. One by one, they are handed a cell phone to borrow. I watch as the guy dials. He waits, and when I hear him say hello to whoever is on the other end of the line, then he is telling them he made it to Mexico, that he is in a shelter, that he's okay, but each word comes out more choked than the one before. Then he is staring at the ceiling, tears streaming down his face. He stays like this a few minutes, trying to compose himself. He nods at whatever he is being said to him, but he can't seem to get any more words out. I look at Pequeña. Let's call them, I tell her. Let them know we're okay. She looks at me. We should, but... She stares in the direction of the guy. He's hunched over now. Do you really want to? She says. I know what she means. I know she thinks I will dissolve in a pool of my own tears if I hear Mama's voice. And she's right. I think about it. I think of her voice, of the strangle in it as soon as she hears mine, of the way she will want to crawl right through the phone to hold me, to pull me back to her, of the way I will have to hang up, not knowing if I'll ever hear her voice again. If we call, we won't go on. We won't be able to. And they'll convince us not to, Pequeña says. Before you know it, we'll be back in Puerto Barrios, back to the things that sent us running. I look down, hoping she doesn't see the tears in my eyes just at the thought. Another person is on the phone now. More tears streaming down another face. Another person choking on his words, swallowing his pain. I hear my mother's voice in my mind again, and some part of me inside crumbles. We'll call when we're closer, she says. I nod. When, not if. Because we'll make it, I tell myself. I look over at Chico playing cards with the little kids who were watching cartoons. They're laughing as he acts like a clown and makes silly faces at them. And even though somebody might get irritated because I'm saving his place in line, it's worth it, just to see him being himself, even if only for a little while. That night, as 7 o'clock approaches, my heart starts drumming faster. The beat picks up with each sound that passes. I get my bag and make sure the Walkman is still in there. Soon enough it will be on that train and able to listen to my father's tapes. I focus on that moment, my father, and I wonder if he'll be with me on that train, if his spirit is walking next to me, even now. I look at the clock. 5 more minutes. I look at Pequeña and Chico, who are both looking at the clock too. Está bien, abuelo, I hear a girl say. It's the old man who hobbled to the mural of La Virgin last night. He nods and smiles at her, trying to reassure her. They both have their bags and are headed to the door. They must be going to catch one of the minibuses or vans also. A part of me wants to ask, but then I don't really want to know. I feel bad for the old man. Already I'm worrying about him. But his granddaughter, and I don't have room for any more worry or ache in my heart than I already have. I've seen their silhouettes in the doorway, the evening light behind them. The old man is wearing a cowboy hat and a pair of sneakers. I saw Marlena giving him earlier. He starts coughing so violently he has to stop walking. And then he is grabbing his chest. And then the young girl is screaming. Just like that, people rush to him. Father Gilberto is on the ground next to him, yelling for someone to call an ambulance. The girl is screaming. She is screaming and screaming and screaming. She is begging him not to leave her. She is begging God not to let him die. She is begging everyone around her. And we are all standing here, unable to move, unable to do anything. And I think to her, we must look like we can't hear her. A woman goes to her knees, trying to hug the girl, trying to pull away as the priest says the old man needs room, but she is holding on to her grandfather's hand so tight, and she is screaming, "We've come so far, abuelito, please, please stay with me." I turn away from it, but before I do, I see her looking at me, and I see a false flash of desperation. "Don't leave," she yells. Her voice is shrill, so high I don't know how God wouldn't be able to hear her. I know she means her grandfather. I know that who she means. But the way she says it, the way she looks, I can hardly move. "I'm sorry," I whisper, though it's impossible for her to hear me. And we go into the dusk, far away from her, far away from the dying.